A client proposal is due at 4 p.m. 3 unread requests are marked urgent, and the project that could create next month's revenue is still untouched. The visible problem is not a full list. It is a flat list, where every item makes the same claim on your attention. If that continues, the cost shows up as missed deadlines, unfinished strategic work, and the slow burnout of restarting all day. The Clarity Compass system turns that flat list into a working map. Its question is simple. What happens if this is not the next completed output? The practical result is a compass card that separates urgent, important, delegable, and removable work, then turns the chosen item into a finishable output rather than another intention. Poor prioritization persists because most operators try to solve a decision problem with storage. They move tasks into cleaner lists, nicer boards, or longer plans, but the items still compete on the same surface. A deadline, a client request, a maintenance chore, and a future opportunity all sit beside each other as if they carry equal weight. The loss is not only time, it is direction. Work starts too late because urgent items were hidden. Important work gets delayed because it did not shout. Delegable work stays with the owner because no handoff was defined. Removable work survives because deleting it feels risky. The real diagnosis is that the list has no mechanism for comparing claims before attention is spent. The Clarity Compass system is a sorting mechanism for active work, not a personality test and not a permanent life plan. The artifact is a compass card. In the center sits one current observable outcome, such as a submitted proposal, a published landing page, or a delivered client draft. Around it are 4 bearings. North holds tasks with a real-time consequence. East holds important work that advances the center outcome. West holds work that can be delegated because the result can be specified. South holds work that can be eliminated or parked because the cost of doing it now is higher than the cost of not doing it. It applies when competing tasks and projects need sequencing. It does not replace emergency judgment, specialist obligations, or capacity limits. It controls 4 decisions: do now, schedule, delegate, or remove. The first operating rule is that urgency must prove consequence. As a practical default, a task cannot sit north unless delay creates a real consequence within 72 hours or blocks a committed deliverable. This rule works because it separates pressure from impact. A message can feel urgent without changing the next output. A compliance deadline, a locked client review, or a broken checkout path may carry a real-time consequence. Use this rule when tasks are fighting for the next work block. Do not use it to ignore high-consequence obligations that have their own rules or fixed duties. If a decision is reversible and does not block the center outcome, it usually moves east or to the holding edge. The decision changes from responding first to choosing the next completed output. Ask again, what happens if this is not the next completed output? The second rule is that delegation requires an acceptance shape before it leaves your hands. A task belongs west only when another person can see the desired output, the constraint, and the handoff point. If those are missing, delegation creates rework, not relief. The trade-off is real. Defining a handoff takes time, and sometimes doing the task yourself is faster once. But repeated or specialized work becomes expensive when it stays with the operator by default. At the midpoint, run a brief self-audit. Pick 5 active tasks. Does each have a compass bearing, an observable output, and a consequence for delay? Any task missing one of those is not ready for a work block. It needs clarification, a handoff shape, or removal. This prevents vague work from hiding inside momentum. Consider a solo operator preparing a small product launch on Friday. The list includes payment testing, landing page copy, image resizing, an email announcement, analytics cleanup, and a podcast pitch. The visible constraint is 12 focused hours before the launch window. The center outcome becomes a working checkout page and first email ready by Thursday noon. Payment testing moves north because a failure blocks the launch. Landing page copy moves east because it creates the buyer path. Image resizing moves west with a clear size, folder, and review time for a contractor. Analytics cleanup and the podcast pitch move south for now. The action is not to work harder. It is to finish the north tile, then the east tile, then inspect the handoff. The trade-off is accepting imperfect measurement in exchange for a functioning launch path. The output is inspectable: a tested checkout, a published page, a sent handoff, and a visible cut list. The third rule is that elimination must compare removal cost against completion cost. This is where generic advice often becomes too soft. Saying no is easy when the task is obviously useless. The harder trade-off is a task that has some value but not enough value for this operating window. South is not a trash bin. It is a deliberate removal zone. A task can be eliminated, parked with a review date, or reduced to a smaller version. The rule works because it forces the hidden cost into view. Every preserved option consumes attention, coordination, or recovery time. It fails when elimination becomes avoidance of uncomfortable, important work. If the task advances the center outcome and the consequence of delay is meaningful, it does not belong south just because it feels difficult. Now take an independent consultant preparing a Friday strategy workshop. The client requested extra benchmarking, 2 stakeholder interviews, and a revised agenda. On Wednesday, the key interview is canceled. The constraint is a fixed workshop time and no analyst support. The center outcome changes to a credible workshop plan with visible assumptions. The revised agenda moves east because it shapes the client conversation. The canceled interview becomes north only long enough to request a written response or replacement input by a cutoff time. Extra benchmarking moves south because it would consume the remaining preparation window without resolving the missing stakeholder view. A short synthesis template moves west to an assistant, with the exact source folder and format defined. The plan is disrupted, but the artifact makes the disruption inspectable. The result is a workshop pack with assumptions clearly separated from confirmed inputs. The learning loop changes the next engagement. Stakeholder availability is checked before optional research begins. The system has 3 common failure modes. The first is false north. Everything with emotional pressure gets called urgent. Respond by asking for the specific consequence and time window. The second is decorative mapping. Tasks are placed on the compass card, then work still begins with the easiest item. Respond by choosing one next observable output before opening new inputs. The third is over-delegation. Unclear work is handed off and returns with more questions. Respond by adding the acceptance shape before transfer. The learning loop is called residue review. After a block or disruption, mark what moved, stalled, reopened, or vanished. Residue shows whether the rule was too loose, the output was too large, or the handoff came too late. That evidence changes the next similar choice. Return to the 4 p.m. proposal, the unread requests, and the revenue project. The question is no longer which item feels loudest. It is, what happens if this is not the next completed output? Use 4 operating takeaways. First, write one center outcome before sorting tasks. Second, let urgency prove a consequence using the 72-hour window as a practical default rather than a law. Third, delegate only when the acceptance shape is visible. Fourth, move low return work south before it quietly taxes the whole week. After the next work block, run residue review. What moved, what reopened, what was cut, and what should be decided earlier next time. The transformation is observable when a flat list becomes a compass map. and the next work block starts with a chosen output instead of a reaction.